Hi friends, welcome to the Wild Side. I'm Steve Hall. All-terrain vehicles and the bigger utility task vehicles can help you get the job done in hard-to-get-to places. They are especially popular for doing farm work. But you don't have to be a farmer to have fun riding ATVs and UTVs. And as you're about to see on TV, there are hundreds of acres of trails on Tennessee state forests where you are welcome to get revved up for a riding adventure. But there are some rules you're expected to follow.
In a rapidly growing market of unique and powerful machines, the popularity of hauling in and heading out across one of Tennessee's forests is rising right along with the price tags.
You'd go from a 110 three-wheeler at $500 in good condition to $45,000. Absolutely. Absolutely. I started with a 110 three-wheeler probably 30 years ago, 35 years ago. And now I'm up to the side-by-sides or whatever. I've had street bikes, dirt bikes, four-wheelers, three-wheelers, all of it.
And when you have that sort of investment, along with all that horsepower, you want to get out and go for the full off-road experience.
We've been riding around everywhere. My dad and all of his friends slinging mud everywhere. It's fast, bumpy, and most of the time you usually go over big hills and you go over small hills.
And you meet all kinds of people from all over the world. I'm talking about all the way from Canada, Mexico, California, North Carolina, everywhere.
Advertised for terrain domination, mud, water, and rocks, the attraction to such an extreme experience is changing the sport and gradually changing the landscape.
When I was a kid, we'd ride out here quite a bit. The biggest difference, I would say, back then were the four-wheelers. The four-wheelers were a lot smaller, less powerful, couldn't go as many places, where now you got big machines, big horsepower. I mean, you can take them almost anywhere. I mean, there's nowhere that these machines they have now won't go.
On the 36,642 acres of Natchez Trace State Forest, almost 200 miles have been designated for hiking, biking, horseback riding, and all-terrain vehicles. Recreational activities are encouraged as part of the mission for a state forest. But what is also being promoted is responsible use for the purposes of protection.
A lot of people don't understand what we're trying to do and how we're managing the forest for renewable resources and make it sustainable for future use. The things we're trying to protect, like soil compaction, soil erosion, water quality, and a lot of these things is just the human aspect is either positive or negative, and we're trying to eliminate any negative aspects.
This is what we want the forest to look like. It's got vegetation coming up off the ground, which is going to hold all this soil here in place. And as we have over here is an unauthorized trail where ATVs and off-road vehicles have come down, and there's no vegetation growing on it.
Jeremy Lynn Gooch. For me, it was part of being a kid, you know. I didn't know what damage that I could have been causing to the creek beds and the banks of the creeks and the erosion problems I might have been causing. So for me, you know, it was probably just, you know, uneducated about the damage that I could be doing by riding the creeks and the creek banks and off the trails where we wasn't supposed to be. So I would say the thing that's changed is I'm just more educated now on, you know, the damage that it causes.
Education is a necessary component, especially when the rules seem counterintuitive to what we are used to seeing in a law-abiding society. Typically, areas with restricted access are clearly marked, but with an abundance of illegal trails cutting through the creeks, hills, and heavy vegetation, it is the legal trails where you will find a sign. If the road has a name or an arrow, you are welcome to ride.
The trails that I know I'm not supposed to be on, I won't go on. So if they're on a map, I feel that it's okay for me to go on. But I will not go on where you're not supposed to go. I stay out of the water, you know, and I try to abide by the rules. But there is some trails that are pretty secluded where some people will say, oh, we're not supposed to be back here, and I'll show them the map. I keep the map with me, I keep the rules with me, and it's okay. I will ride only where I can.
Foresters understand it is easy to get confused when there are so many trails, and oftentimes as groups congregate, one is simply following the other.
I haven't seen anything that said we couldn't. There's not a sign on any trail that we ride that says you cannot be here. Not one single trail. Not that I've seen. The gravel roads, I know that's what they're meant for. And a lot of our riding is on gravel roads. Like coming through here is just a shortcut to get to another gravel road. That's all it is. That's to keep from getting on the highway. If these trails right here wasn't here, we wouldn't be coming through here. We would figure out another way, because there's gravel roads everywhere. So that's what we would do. With these being here, it just makes it easier, saves time.
Saving this land is part of an ongoing process put into place many years ago. The Tennessee Department of Agriculture Forestry Division took over managing it at a time when landowners had really let it go.
This area, the reason that Natchez Trace was here was the Resettlement Act of the 30s, when the federal government came in and they bought a bunch of people's property because they had let it erode so badly that they couldn't even make a living on it. So the government bought it and then turned it over, planted it back, and then turned it over to the state in the 50s to become part of a state forest and park system.
Allowing access to the trails while trying to manage timber and wildlife resources is a challenging assignment for the 6 foresters at Natchez Trace.
When they ride off the trail or off the road, what they're doing is they're compacting the soil around the root system. Well, a tree needs oxygen around its root system just like you and I do. And once you start compacting it, then you push that soil up and eliminate the oxygen, and then that will eventually kill the tree. Once you've done it, it's hard to get it back. And most of the time what happens is when they come into an area, they play in it for a while, and then the trees start dying, and then they don't like that anymore, so they go find another spot to go play in. Well, you've killed that spot, now you're just transferring the damage to another part of the forest.
There are penalties for violating the off-road rules, but more than anything, foresters and adjoining landowners just want those using the land to respect it.
I know it's public property, but we just can't go at everybody's will and do whatever. So yeah, if we stayed on the trails would be a good thing, I think.
I just try to let them know, hey, stay on our roads that we have dedicated for this. You know, I try to tell them about the damage. Most people are, you know, when they find that out, they're like, yeah, that's a good advice, we'll try to do that.
It may seem like the damage could just be repaired, but foresters are afraid that they may be making things worse as equipment moves in and out, and not to mention all of the resources it takes as illegal trails continue to show up. However, they do make sure that all of the marked trails are continuously maintained for those who follow the rules.
We like to have it done twice a year. Take a grader and go along and pull the rock from the edge back up into the center and crown the road. And by crowning that road, the water will run off to the side and the road should stay in good shape.
Foresters say the illegal trails are certainly not as safe and may be difficult to find in an emergency. It is also dangerous to ride into an unknown area.
We may be logging in there, we may be doing herbicide treatments in that area, and we don't want to expose someone to that. It may be an erosion problem and we just don't want someone getting hurt.
We definitely don't try to keep anybody from having fun, but again, this is a multi-use area, so it has to be, I mean, you can't give one person privileges over somebody. Everybody that's out here has rules, from hikers to hunters to everybody. So everybody using the forest has rules, so that's part of it.
And those rules also extend to forestry officials who are very serious about the land they have been assigned to protect.
We don't even ride these trails during work hours unless there's some kind of emergency or our work requires that we do, and even then we're going to be mindful of if there's a steep hill that's eroding, we're going to stay off of it. We're going to walk from there. I mean, the only time we ride these trails is if, you know, for fire reasons or maybe somebody was hurt or somebody's lost. I mean, if that's the case, yeah. But, you know, just recreational riding, no, we stay off the trails. We follow the same rules that we ask everybody else to follow.
Trails with a name or an arrow. Almost 200 miles of legal trails. Those are the ones you are welcome to ride. In Natchez Trace State Forest, I'm Ezekiel Nole Hall on the Wild Side.
You can ride over to our website, wildsidetv.com, to find a link to some ATV maps. Now take note, the Cedars of Lebanon is the only state forest that does not permit all-terrain vehicles.
Tennessee's Wild Side, broadcast for nearly 2 decades, was originally created through a vision of the Jackson Foundation. The foundation remains a supportive partner in the mission to educate viewers about wildlife, natural resources, and opportunities for outdoor adventure. Wild Side is produced by Rockwater TV with support from Tennessee State Parks, where you can discover our state's diverse heritage through spectacular landscapes, family-friendly recreation, and affordable lodging. Tennessee State Parks, fun and adventure naturally. And with support from the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, promoting wise uses of Tennessee's agricultural and forest resources to develop economic opportunities and to ensure safe and dependable food, fuel, and fiber for all citizens. And also with support from Nissan, working together with the Nature Conservancy to fulfill its mission of conserving land and water on which all life depends, and now celebrating 40 years of conservation in Tennessee.